everyone, and welcome back to Book March Madness. My name is Lee, and I will be your ref for this competition. It has been an eventful past 48 hours. Since the first 4 rounds started a few days ago, all of the voting sites are now closed for our first 4 competition, which means that we have the 4 play-in titles that will be officially in the competition. I'm really excited to share with you the results. I did not expect people to be this divisive or decisive in their choosing of these titles. There were 2 titles that were pretty far and away the lead, but then the other 2 were actually fairly close, split nearly down the middle. So without further ado, let's talk about which titles are officially in Book March Madness. So for the Classics bracket, we had our wildcard title, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, going up against Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. This was my one prediction, that I thought Little Women was going to basically just obliterate Treasure Island, and I was very much correct. Treasure Island only had 10% of the votes that Little Women got, statistically, which means that Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson is now out of the competition and will be put down here in the basement. And that means that Little Women by Louisa May Alcott is now officially in Book March Madness, and we'll be going up against A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens in our first round competition. Now for the mystery thriller bracket, this was a little bit more of a close race. Eventually one particular title pulled ahead, and it was not the one that I was expecting, and that is Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. By and large took the most votes. It was sort of a race to the finish to see which title would pull ahead, and the Moonstone won it, which means that Presumed Innocent by Scott Turow is officially out of the competition and is going to go down here with Treasure Island. And then for the romance bracket, this was the other one that was hugely split. I did not expect this one to be as one-side heavy as it was, but I guess people are not a fan of Tolstoy because Anna Karenina got a pittance of votes compared to The Princess Bride by William Goldman. So The Princess Bride remains exactly where it is, up against Nicholas Sparks, and Anna Karenina, unfortunately, is out of the competition, which means that we don't really have a tragedy title in the romance genre, which I thought was going to be very interesting to have a tragedy, which I would consider to be a pretty big subgenre of the romance bracket. But it goes down here on the bottom. And then last but not least, this was the other one that I had kind of a bold prediction on, between Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis and The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I expected Brandon Sanderson's fans to show up, and for a while they did. It was in the clear lead, but the loyalists of C.S. Lewis came through, and by a handful of votes, I want to say maybe like around 5-6 votes, Out of the Silent Planet pulled ahead of Way of Kings, which means that we do not have a Brandon Sanderson title in the fantasy sci-fi bracket. I am so sorry for all of you Brandon Sanderson fans. I kind of was rooting for you because there's technically 2 Lewis titles in the bracket already. Maybe next time. So we have officially the 64 teams that will be included in the Book March Madness bracket. There will be a moment of silence or sad music at the end of this video honoring the 4 titles that did not make it into the competition, but the audience did manage to get one of their submissions into the competition, which was Little Women. So you guys have a stake in the claim now of in the competition, so that's good. Now let's move on to talk about the first round competition, which as soon as this video is over will begin. Voting, just like the first round or first 4 competition, is exactly the same, except because there are so many titles now included in this particular competition. Some of you noticed that on the SurveyMonkey, it was required to answer a question before you could go on to the next question, or like required to submit a vote on one of the 2 titles before you could move on. That's not going to happen with this large of a competition because I don't know if anyone is this widely read. So it'll be kind of fruitless to have that many people vote on this many particular titles. So that will be taken away later. Once we get to the Sweet 16, it will be required that you answer or pick a title. But for now, the first round and the second round, that's not the case. So you can just go through and vote in the categories that you think you know the best and which titles you have the most experience with. If you have to skip them, that's okay. Also, instead of having an entire 32 question survey to take, it will be divided up into the 4 brackets. So there will be a link to each bracket. So even if you have a particular bracket that you only want to vote in, that's fine. So you can click on the classics voting link and just vote in the classics, or if you want to do all 4, you can click on all 4 individual links and you'll be taken to the respective surveys. Again, how do you vote? What are the criteria on which you base your vote? And to which I say, there could be a numerous amount of things. I don't vote in this competition because I am the one who technically curated all of these titles. And so I did my best to be objective, but my opinion has already skewed the competition, so I don't vote. But you can vote based on several things. Whether you like the story, which story is better, whether you like the reputation of the author, or are you a loyalist like the C.S. Lewis fans over here who will vote for Lewis no matter if they've read the book or not. Do you like the cover art better? Or are you going to be a literary critic and really talk about the analysis of what's in the book? Is it truly better? Are you swayed by the subject matter? Do you like the characters? Honestly, it can be whatever reason you want. Just tell me which book is better in your mind. Now, just like the first 4 competition, the first round only has 48 hours to vote. So the voting sites will all be closed on March 20th at 10 a.m. It will only be the 48 hours. So if you're going to do your research or formulate your opinions, do it timely so that you have enough time to vote. Now time for some predictions. This is my favorite part because I am not allowed to vote in this competition. So I'm going to make some predictions on to which titles I think are going to take it in this first competition. I'm not going to do all of them because I haven't read all of them, so I'm not really able to make an educated decision on all of them, but I definitely think that with the amount of force behind the votes the Little Women got, that is definitely going to go far in the classics bracket. And I think if the staunch fans of The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak or A Man Called Uwe by Friedrich Bachmann, The Book Thief was by and large, I think, probably one of the most popular titles for a while. So many people read it and loved it, and it plays into so many different genres. I think this is going to go really far. But I also know that Friedrich Bachmann is really popular right now, and he is such a quality writer that I think he is going to do really well in the classics bracket. For the mystery thriller bracket, I 100% think that Agatha Christie is probably going to go the farthest for the champion classics. Rebecca might show up a little bit because it has an uptick in popularity. I'm kind of expecting the Riley Sager title to do well because she has such a staunch following right now, as does Ruth Ware, even though it is ranked lower than Riley Sager. I'm watching both of those pretty closely. For the romance bracket, I've no doubt that a Nicholas Sparks title is going to go pretty far, as well as the Austens. There are 2, Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice. I 100% think that she is going to obliterate for a while, and people will just be crushed under the force of the Austen footprint. So for the contemporaries or the rookies for the romance genre, I'm watching From Blood and Ash because this by and large was the most read title I noticed on BookTube and Bookstagram. But I'm also keeping my eye on the Talia Hibbert, Get a Life, Chloe Brown. That was also really popular. For the fantasy sci-fi bracket, 100% a Tolkien or a Lewis I think is going to sweep it. There may be a few 1984 or George Orwell lovers, but I'm keeping my eye on anything by Lewis or Tolkien. And then if I'm going to make I talked about in the introduction video for the fantasy sci-fi bracket that I thought the top 3 titles for the rookies for the fantasy bracket, which is Crescent City, Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and Ninth House, those were all the most popular fantasy books I saw, by and large, for BookTube and Bookstagram. I think they're all going to do really well. However, if I'm going to make a winner prediction for this bracket in total, I'm watching Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas a lot because Sarah J. Maas is huge right now. She's been huge for a while, but she has so many different active series, and almost everybody I know on BookTube and Bookstagram, with myself being the exception, has read her. And she's so popular, her characters are so sharp, and she has such a way with world building that I don't think necessarily we've seen in a long time. So the quality and the fan base is huge for Sarah J. Maas. I would have said the same thing about Brandon Sanderson had he been in the competition, because I know a lot of people really love his originality, but unfortunately he's not in. I would have watched him and Sarah J. Maas in here, but my eye is on her, Crescent City, to see how it does. That is not to say there won't be some upsets. For most of these, I kind of have a general opinion on which I think will do better, but I'm not confident enough to make an exacting decision. From the people who I've spoken to, they have already been eyeballing the matchups that are going to be the most painful for them. For my mom, it's definitely Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel and A Man Called Uwe. She just finished the Wolf Hall trilogy, and she's currently obsessed with Friedrich Bachmann, and so she's having a hard time with that pairing. And there are several others in here. I've had friends who don't like that there's going to be 2 Jane Austen titles in there, because eventually they'll headbutt. There are a lot of people who don't like the fact that there's a Sherlock and an Agatha Christie. You know, there's a lot of tension in here that people are already looking out for, which is great. I love it. It's going to lead to some really interesting decisions. So I want to say that the voting period for the first round, like I said, will be concluded on March 20th, and then the second round will be introduced, and that voting will begin and expire on the 22nd. And after that, there's going to be a little bit of a lull in terms of time and voting while everything gets reorganized to begin the Sweet 16. So there are going to be huge cuts after this one. 32 teams are going to go down into the nether regions down here with our 4 rejected play-in titles. And it's going to be a lot smaller bracket, and I think things are going to get a little more complicated in terms of picking. So I'm really excited. This is the round that I think probably most anticipating, because there are going to be so many cuts, and it's going to be a complete reorganization of what's on the board. So I'm going to have to do a lot of work keeping my book bracket up to date. I don't know why, but every time I look at this, it sits in the corner of my room. Every time I look at this, I just get so excited. Oh, anyway, okay, starting now, the video is almost over, so go ahead and go down into the description and click on the links where you want to choose your favorite titles. Again, the voting will expire in the morning on March 20th. And if you need any more information about any of the book summaries, the official Book March Madness website will be down in the description, as well as a link to Leigh Ellen's Library on Instagram, where there will be on my Instagram story abridged versions of voting if you want to go do it there instead of SurveyMonkey. Those will only be up for 24 hours, so just a heads up. I think that's all the information. Happy voting! I feel like this big weight's released now that this is out into the universe. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. It really does help me out and let me know what you guys want to see. As always, a huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly means the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. So, until we have 32 less titles and a whole new bracket, we'll see you later.